Now that we know what are variables, I'm going to remove all of this that we calculated or that we created in the previous video. Now we're going to get to the scariest part of programming that everybody is afraid of, and that is math. So let's go over here and, for example, let's create an integer that is health and that is equal to 100. Actually, this is going to be a float because usually you will use a float to denote a health value. And here I'm going to say point. So like this dot f, and let's say over here I'm going to say float damage, and that's going to be equal to 2.f like this. And I want to, well, subtract the 2. So how I'm going to do that? Well, here I'm going to say std colon colon c out like this, and here let's say I'm going to print. So I'm going to print something like the health or the remaining. So remaining health is colon here, and I'm going to say again less than sign. This is, I believe, yeah, less than sign. I'm going to say here health minus damage like this. And if I go over here and run this, and if I say, well, yes, to run it, we will see here the remaining health is 98. So this is one of the basic operations that we are going to perform, which is subtraction. You can also go here, for example, you can say float sum or remaining health like this is going to be equal to health minus damage. You can also add to it, so you can say plus, you can say multiply, you can say divide. And this works with integers and doubles as well. And this is all the scary math that we are going to do inside of our programming. So yeah, it's really hard. I mean, no, I'm just being ironic over here, but don't worry, nothing, I mean, when it comes to math, it's more simple than you think, because in most cases, you're just going to do these plus equals minus multiply operations, especially when you're moving the player. We will see later on when we start working in Unreal Engine, when we start animating and moving the player, we're simply going to add to the vector. We're going to say plus and add to the vector the movement and the movement direction. So it's basic operation, so it's nothing complicated. You can go here, you can have int a, which is going to be equal to 2, and int b, which is going to be equal to 3, and you can have int sum is going to be equal to a plus b like this. And here, instead of the remaining health, we can say something like the sum of a and b is colon, and here we can simply pass our sum to print that to the console, or actually print it, yeah, actually this is a console, so yeah, so we're going to print it in the console. So you see here at the top, the sum of a and b is 5. And if I try to do something like this, so let's say a is, I don't know, let's say 7, and b is 2. And if I go over here, instead of sum, I'm going to say division, and I'm going to say a divided by b, and here we now need to remove the sum and add the division. So if I go over here and if I, well, run this, we will see that the value is 3. So the sum or the division of a divided by b is 3. Why is that? Well, going back to our previous lecture where I told you that integers are whole numbers, they are not able to store decimal point numbers. So you see here 7 divided by 2, that should be 3.5, right? Because 3.5 plus 3.5 or multiplied by 2, that is equal to 7. So that is not working. But if we go here and if we say float, and also here if I say float and float, so we're dividing floats by floats. And if I go over here and, well, yes, to run the app, you will see now that we have 3.5. This will also work with our doubles. So if I go over here and if I say double, so double like this over here, and I run the game and say yes, so we will see that is 3.5. And by the way, if somebody is confused, here we have 7 and I didn't add f at the end, you can say point f like this, and voila, that problem is solved. Again, if you want to denote this is a float, you will add f at the end. So here again, I'm going to say yes, and going back here, voila. So yeah, sum of, and I'm still printing the sum, but yeah, it's the division, you get the point. So you saw that basically integers cannot store decimal point numbers, and you saw that we need to use floats or doubles when we want to deal with decimal point numbers. Now, if you're wondering if we can do something like this, so if I can say int, actually I'm going to go over here, something like this, and if I say here int a is equal to 7 and float b is 2, can I divide a by b and get the division? Well, let's see. So if I go over here and say yes, of course we can, because over here we are simply denoting that the float or the value that we're getting is a float. But if we do this over here, will it work still? So a divided by b, will that work? So let's go over here and say yes to run it. Of course it will work. So you see here, sum of a and b is 3.5, even though one is an integer and another is a float. So it doesn't matter if one is an integer and another is a float, because it will be converted. This right here automatically, it will be converted. If we had here, for example, an int, would this work? So let's go over here and I'm passing the division. What do you think? Will this work? So if I hit the play button, and why am I saying the play button? It's the run button. And yeah, anyways, this will not work again because we're storing it into an integer. Why is that? Again, integers are whole numbers. Floats are decimal point numbers. So yeah, it will not work if we store it back here, you see, and then we are printing here the division. So it will not work. And again, I'm just using here divide. I can say multiply. So this will be multiplication. And here the multiplication of a and b is passing the multiplication. Let's run it. Will this work? Of course it will, because we're multiplying a float and integer. So yeah, it's 14. And if I go back over here and if I simply say float and not float, it's float. So Control V to paste the float over here. And if I run it and go here, yes, you will see now that again we have 14. Now, again, these are all the basic operations. You can continue experimenting on your own. I encourage you. I demand from you. I give you an assignment. I don't want to be those teachers like, oh, he gave me an assignment, can I go out? No, I'm just kidding. But anyways, it will be better for you if you practice. I mean, this is just basic operations. You can create floats and integers, subtract from them, multiply them. What if we have something like this? So if I say here like int b, and that is going to be equal to, let's say 10, like this over here. So let's say 10, and not multiplication, but I'm going to say here as well an integer. So it is going to be subtraction, and it is going to be a minus b. And here I'm going to paste it like this. So let's go over here and run the app. So what will the value be? It will be -3, because we also can deal with negative numbers. You see here at the top, the subtraction of a and b is equal to 3, because 7 minus 10, that is equal to -3. And yes, we can subtract from it, so on and so forth. This is all the math, like literally, this is all the math that you will be doing when it comes to calculating or using math in programming. Of course, there are some other complicated math operations, but they're already built in, like sine and cosine and whatnot. They're already built in, so we simply call a function and it calculates for us. But you will be doing all of this over here. So if you were scared so far about math and using math in programming and that you need to know, this is all the math you need to know. So if you know how much is 7 minus 10, or if you know how much 2 is plus 2, congratulations, you know enough math to program in C++ or any other programming language for that matter. So until then, I will see you guys until then. Until what? I didn't say anything. I will see you guys in another video.